These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. This episode of the Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Defend Security Cameras. Well, we're back here with Senator Nash. I think the last time you were on the podcast, you were a candidate.
Yeah, it wasn't a great interview either. I'm not necessarily proud of that one. I was kind of a little overstimulated from everything campaign.
Yeah, you're a little nervous. You don't know what to say.
Yeah, I never had much trepidation in putting my foot in my mouth, but I did want to say the appropriate things, and you led me down a trail too of some federal issues that I wouldn't have any control over as a state senator. But anyway, we got through it, and it probably isn't your most prized podcast thus far.
No, I wouldn't even think about it in those terms. But part of the reason that I was doing that is I don't know that folks necessarily understand which governing body controls which issue, right? They think of government as one overarching thing. And it's like, all right, well, I've got this issue. Who do I talk to about it? Well, maybe it's my representative or my senator. Well, if it's not a state government issue, then they may not be able to have much control over that. But people also have the idea that you have influence over our, U.S. congressmen and U.S. senators from the state of Oregon. So it's just a little bit confusing. It's been a long time since senior civics, Yeah,
it's true. And I get asked on a consistent basis how often I have to go back to Washington, D.C. And, and I do go to D.C. occasionally on some federal issues, and I still do work with congressional leadership and our federal senators. But my home away from home is Salem right now.
Yeah. Well, give me a little synopsis of how things have gone. You've now gone through a long session and a short session, but let's break down what that means and how that actually works.
Yeah, and so in the odd number years, like in 25 was a long session. I was sworn in January 13th a year ago, and that long session lasts 6 months. It goes all the way through June. And then there is a constitutional break at that point that we are done the 1st July.
So does the long session start on January 13th on odd years?
Not necessarily always on the 13th, and I'm not sure what the date is in 27, but we will start sometime in January and really start working bills in February, and then we will finish up in June sometime.
During that 6-month long session, how many bills are you encountering?
Well, last year was a record number of bills, and I think there were over 4,000 that were dropped.
4,000 in 6 months. And how much reading is involved in one bill?
Well, it can be a considerable amount because when you're looking at a bill, and maybe it's only 12 pages long, for instance, but when you look at that bill, it also refers to other ORSs, other pieces of legislation. And so you could be referring back to other documents that could be over 100 pages long if you really want to dig into what the legislation does or doesn't do. It's considerable. But, typically I would say that most bills are in that, 10 pages long. They're not friendly reading. The title has to be friendly reading. There's a Fletch score, and it has to be a Fletch score of 70 or less, something like that. And so that's an 8th grade reading level.
And that's just for the title? Or?
That's just for the title. The rest of it can get bogged down, but somebody should be able to pick that up, read the title, and say, oh, this is what the bill is about, and this is what it does.
Okay. Of that 4,000, how many are actually getting voted on the Senate floor?
Oh, not very many. And I should have that number off the top of my head, but we're not seeing maybe not even 10% of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who submits the most bills in the Oregon Senate?
Well, in the Senate side, David Brock Smith has the record. David Brock Smith is an animal for that, and I love David. He's running for a Senate position right now, federal Senate position against Jeff Merkley, and I hope the best for him. He's a great guy from Southern Oregon. He absolutely loves Southern Oregon. He has sayings that roll off the tip of his tongue like nobody else, and he will tell you everything's better at the beach. And he's from the Fish Farm and Forest District. And then other sayings he has is, that's another environmental for-profit nonprofit. And David is a great guy. But the other saying that David has that he's most famous for, when he goes to town halls in his own district, people will say something and David will say, I have a bill for that. And he does. And generally that is anywhere from 250 to 400 bills that David Brock Smith drops.
What an animal.
He is an animal. And like I say, love David to death. But man, if everybody did that, and it's not cheap either. So when those bills drop, they go to legislative council, which are attorneys that are hired by the state of Oregon. And each of those bills will cost anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 for them to prepare to put in the form of a bill.
Gotcha. Okay, so a senator can come up with a bill and, have it go through this process to have it get cleaned up so that it's legible and has its appropriate Fletch score and all that. And then what does that bill's life look like from that point forward?
Oh, great question, James. And so, there was a little legislative cartoon for a long time that said, I'm just a bill, I'm only a bill, and I'm stuck up here on Capitol Hill.
Yep.
And, somebody had a concept and they brought it to a legislator and said, yes, there should be a law. And so that is fairly accurate, but the life of a bill gets wildly more complex, and it takes some turns that are unexpected sometimes, and some of them fly right through. And I have not become the master of making bills fly right through, but some of them that I thought would have very little resistance ended up to have tremendous resistance. So I know I'm making a long, drawn out, not explaining what happens, but let's try an example here. You come to me and say, I think there should be a law on blank. I'm going to challenge you.
Mandatory silencers for everyone at the gun range.
Mandatory silencers for everybody at the gun range.
Which is not something that I actually believe in, but it'd be nice if people had it.
Okay. And so, yeah. And so I would say as a legislator first, wow, sounds like a great idea. Or James, I'm not sure that's a great idea. I'm a local control guy, and I'm not going to mandate anything that I don't believe in. So on first blush, I'm probably not going to pick that up. And I do have people on a consistent basis that come to me with bill ideas that I don't believe in. Mm-hmm. But maybe for your audience sake, let's take up what was the Cougar bill.
Yeah.
You want to try that one instead?
Let's try that one instead. So,
all right. So,
all right. I've got this idea. We had a ballot petition that became a ballot measure back in the early 90s, and only a couple counties in the state supported it, and the rest of the counties did not, and that banned the use of dogs for hunting cougars and bears. Since then, we've seen a massive decline in our mule deer population. I'm really concerned about it. We've seen a big increase in our cougar population. Our current methods of hunting are wildly ineffective. It's around a 0% success rate. I would like to see a bill that allowed us to vote as counties, whether each county should be able to use dogs to hunt cougars.
That sounds like a really great bill. And it goes back to, I'm a local control guy. I'm a commissioner at heart. I believe that we have a very diverse state, and we need to appreciate each other in the diversity that we have. So, and I can see that we have a problem with the cougar population that is consistently growing. We have a mule deer population that is in decline. And the most effective way that we know of to hunt cougars is with dogs. And so I'm all in. And so what I do is I go to my chief of staff generally, and I say, okay, chief, here's the bill concept. And we draft it out. And then he runs it past me and says, is this what you had in mind? Yeah, that kind of captures the idea. We send it then off to LC, and LC will return that. Now, as a senator and working with LC, I have an attorney privilege client relationship with LC at that time, and until I'm okay with the bill. And so we're back and forth, and generally it's 3 or 4 times going back and forth with LC to make sure they really capture the spirit of what you want there, or the integrity of what you want. And so sometimes it means even setting up a phone conference with them, or a Zoom meeting, or meeting in person, say no. And we get down to really word jockeying and trying to get the exact verbiage that we want in there in order to hit all the points. Then once we have that all ironed out, then we can drop that LC. And if it's before a date in December, we do what is called pre-session filing. And we have a couple of different dates for that. We have a date back in September that you can pre-session file in legislative days. And you can get it sometimes before a committee so that they can hear the concept and start to think about, is this something that we really want to work? Then the drop dead pre-session file date is in December. So you have newly electeds like I was that don't really know you're elected until November. Mm-hmm. And for me, I had the benefit of having Senator Hansel. He said that he would take any of my LCs and drop them for me. And so he pre-session filed back in September. We pre-session filed a few more in December. And then after that, you have 6 priority bills. And I know I'm diverging a little bit from the original bill here, but that's kind of the logistics of how everything works there, as far as all of the dropping the initial bill. Then you can still hold that LC if you don't want to make it public until right before session. And then there is a day that all the LCs drop. And you can see the full list of what is going to be the 4,000 bills or whatever. And so everybody gets a look at them. And so there is a way to go in there and search. And if you want to search cougar, you can search cougar, see who's packing a cougar bill, hound dogs, whatever the case may be. And so these lobbyists, and there's, oh gosh, I should know this too. There's, I think maybe 1,500 registered lobby in Oregon. These guys are shuffling through these things, and they're trying to find the good, the bad, the ugly. And they're going to either come and say, hey, we want to support your bill. What can we do to help you out? A lot of them know ahead of time because you've worked with lobby to make sure this is something that they support if they're friends to you, or even if they're opposition, you may want to let them know, hey, I'm going to bring a bill. Just wanted to let you know out of courtesy that this is going to hit.
You've got 20 acres, and your security camera can see about 50 feet from your Wi-Fi router. Your gate, your barn, your equipment, all the places you actually need to monitor, they're exactly where your Wi-Fi doesn't reach. That's where Defend security cameras make a lot of sense. They work on cellular, just like your phone. But here's what's clever. They've got an embedded SIM card that automatically connects to the best network in your area. Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. It finds whatever's strongest. No choosing providers, no contracts, no hassle. I'm using Defend cameras at my place. You mount it, open the Defend app on your phone, and you're done. 10 minutes. Clear footage, night vision, instant alerts, and here's something you need to know. Defend doesn't sell your data. Not to China, not to tech companies, not to anyone. They work for you, period. Defend your place.
And so there we are. We're in January. The bills have dropped, and we get to see what's out there. You still have 6 priority bills that you have another cutoff date, and you can introduce late into the session there. And so anyway, now things are flying. And to then get your bill scheduled for a hearing, that is at the will of the committee chair. So in my case, on the Senate side, if it's a natural resource bill, which this one is, I go to Senator Golden, who chairs the Natural Resource Committee. I say, I have a bill. Will you allow a hearing on it? And he has the discretion to say yes or no of whether we even have a hearing or not. Senator Golden was really gracious in allowing hearings on, and we had a hearing on this particular bill. But when it came down to, are we going to get a vote on it? So a vote is the next step. We have a hearing. We had robust participation. And I will say on this particular Cougar bill, there were more notes on OLIS, and OLIS is the Oregon Legislative Information System, where you can put letters of support in. You can go in there, sign up to testify, a number of things that you can look up on OLIS. It's a great website. It really is user-friendly. But we had more letters of support on this particular bill than any other bill posted in the legislature at that time. I think over 900 in support, and there was maybe 300 or so in opposition. So good job to everybody that was involved. There were people that had never participated in the legislative system before that participated in this one. And, so there we go. We had the hearing. We had a great hearing. You came all the way down. You got to speak for a minute and a half. I think there was 2-minute testimony available, and you wanted to give up 30 seconds for any question and answer. The chair chose not to allow for 30 seconds of question and answer. That's his discretion. It's his ship to run. He can run that any way he wants to.
Yeah. I traveled from North Carolina to Salem and got to, I also had the privilege of getting to speak with everyone on that committee the day before. And 2 of the members of the committee said, make sure you leave time so that I can ask you a question. So I spoke for 90 seconds. I said, I'd like to yield the remainder of my time for any questions. And Chair Golden said, thank you for your testimony, and moved on to the next person.
Yeah. And if somebody is emphatic on that panel, those of us that are sitting there next to him, if we're emphatic and we raise our hand, say, Chair Golden, I'd like to ask a question, he will generally stop and give that courtesy. But at that time, he was just really focused on getting through all the testimony and getting on to the next thing. Okay, so we have the hearing. We have a good hearing. People showed up to testify. It was great. And then we try to schedule a work session. The work session is when we go back and we review the bill. And sometimes reviewing the bill is no more than reading the top line. And people are educated on the bill at that point. They've been lobbied on it generally. And so, like you did, when you met with those individuals, you were lobbying. Now, you're not a professional lobbyist, but that's what you do. And it's really important when people come down, if they make the trip, and our office can do that, to try to schedule those individual meetings with those people on those committees so that you may have time to answer some difficult questions that aren't going to be brought up. But okay, enough of that. So we had the hearing, you did your lobby, we'd worked on the bill fairly hard, and then I asked for a work session. And Senator Golden comes back to me and he said, look, Todd, we're not going to have a work session. He said, there is no will within my committee, within my caucus, within the Democrat caucus, to move the bill. And so he said he had zero support from any member in his caucus. So there we are. And that's the end of that bill.
Which is also interesting because the day before, in speaking with a member of his caucus, a senator said, wow, I didn't realize that this was such a big issue. I didn't realize that mule deer were in such decline. I see no reason why this shouldn't move forward. I support this. As a civilian, it is incredibly frustrating to me to see something like this come down to the decision of one individual. It's like a judge without a jury. And in this case, we had more support for it than we had opposition. But it just comes down to his decision, which is the reality of every bill that goes through.
Yeah. But let's look at it from another angle. If that bill now was to be supported and we have a work session and we take a vote. Now on the Senate side, there's 5 of us there in that committee. And so we have to have at least 3 votes to get it out. And so we get our 3 votes or we get 5 votes. Doesn't really matter. But it's out of committee and it's on its way. So the next thing that happens is then it goes to the Senate president's desk. Now, the Senate president has authorities that even the Speaker of the House doesn't have on the House side. The Senate president can then leave that on his desk and not move it any further. And he does that. And so then you go to the Senate president, you say, sir, I would like to see this come to the floor for a vote. And he has full discretion one way or another. Now, let's say that he goes ahead and says, okay, I'm going to schedule it. It'll be out on the floor next Thursday for a vote. And so then it goes to the Senate floor. There's 30 of us on the Senate floor. Now, if it's a bill that involves money, taxation, you need 3/5 majority in order to get that off. So you need 18 votes. And so when we talk about the super minority in Oregon, there's 12 of us Republicans, there's 18 Democrats, and they have the super majority every time. They don't have to have any of our votes in order to pass taxation. We can't stop them. And so the only thing that we can do is deny quorum, and that's just walk away. If we walk away because of Measure 113, we also lose our jobs. We're unelectable again. And so that's something that we weigh out. So let's say in this case, the Senate president says, okay, we have support in our caucus. Sometimes you'll even ask, do you have a vote count? Which to me is a little bit corrupt, but that's the way business is done down there. Say, yeah, I have 16 votes and I'll name them off. And then he says, okay, I'll send it out to the floor. So then we go out to the floor, we debate it on the floor. A lot of what you see on the floor is a little bit fun. We do a little posturing. We banter back and forth. There's people that are going to stand up in opposition. There's going to people that stand up in support. And the carrier of the bill gets 10 minutes. Now, his call, if there's somebody there that supports him and he's still trying to talk about the bill, the merits of it, one thing or another, somebody there can yield 5 minutes of their time to him. And then another 5 minutes and another 5 minutes. And then there's a closing that the carrier also has an option. The closing, he can go for another 10 minutes. So a bill can go on for a long time. And I've seen them go on for long, long times. And there's some people that are masters, and Senator McLean is the master of dragging out time on a bill. And there's sometimes when we tactically need a little more time for the House to be able to accomplish something. And we won't get into that.
So this is like filibuster-esque.
Yeah. Esque is right. So now everybody's done their posturing. You've heard the opposition. You've heard the opening, the closing, and then they call a roll call. On the Senate side, they call everybody by name, all 30. And one of the beautiful things about the legislative process in Oregon is, regardless of whether you have a conflict or not, it's mandatory that you vote. Now, if you have a conflict, you say, I have a conflict. You name your conflict, you file it by the end of the day, and you take the vote. There's never a time when you can say, I just don't want to vote on this. The only thing you can do is walk off. And there are individuals that conveniently have to go to the bathroom when they don't want to take a vote. And I'm not going to name names, but it happens quite often. And so you will see live there, Senator Nash, yay. Senator McLean, yay. Senator Golden, no. You'll see those votes take place. The dirty little secret is, once they make it to the Senate floor, I've never seen a vote fail. They know that they have the votes beforehand. And so all of that you see out there, and I think I have swung a vote or two with a good argument, but you'll never swing. I've never seen it swing to where a vote was lost. And I've tried. I thought I could make a compelling argument that maybe, just maybe, that we'll see it change, and haven't seen it change yet. I'm not going to give up.
How do you stay motivated to keep trying against odds like that?
Oh, if it has really good merits, you just think this is the right thing to do. And so you go back and try again. And, I give the example, and I gave it up on a little Facebook update the other day, but wolf compensation, we've been trying to get a steady stream of monies for wolf compensation for the last 16 years, and we got that this year. So it was the right thing, and you stay with those things because you love the people in your community. You love the people that are impacted. You don't want to see harm come to them, so you keep after it. The other example that I gave to you that, was the county fairs. 9 years, when I first went down in 2017 as a new commissioner, trying to get 1% of video lottery for county fairs, and we got that this year. What motivates you is you go to the county fair, you see your grandkids down there, you see other kids, you know what an impact it had on yourself, and it's a positive thing that you're doing, and you just keep after it because it's important. This thing with mule deer and what we have going on, it's important, and so when some of the inspiration for me is when you look at in Hebrews in the Bible, there's a whole list of people there in that, I think it's chapter 8 or 9 of Hebrews. And all of those people died before they saw the promise that was made to them come true. And I think about that. Well, gosh, if it can happen in my lifetime, that's pretty good compared to all those folks. But we do these things not so much to see that instant gratification, but you keep after it because it's the right thing.
I mean, that's what we all want out of our elected officials, is somebody who's going to stand up and try to do the right thing by the people they represent. It seems like not everybody is on that page, though. Like, how do you continue to be civil with folks that you see who are not acting like that, who are acting in a self-interested way, or they're getting some benefit on the side, or they're being snide and trading bills or holding bills hostage and stuff like that?
Well, there's definitely some things that aren't healthy down there, but I will tell you, regardless of what side you're on, the people that are down there, I don't know of any of them that are down there without the best intent of Oregon in mind. They just have completely different lived experiences than you and I have. They listen to different people than you and I do, and are influenced by them. Sometimes the will to bend to a lobby rather than do what is right is upsetting to me to see that influence, because there is a drive on both the Republican and Democrat side to hold as much power as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Republicans, and rightfully so, they want to get out of a position of a super minority for sure. If we had 13 and 17 out on the floor, that makes quite a little bit of difference when it comes to negotiation on a number of things. And so there is a huge will to want to do that. Now, elections cost money. And so having those lobbies in your camp is important, because they're going to help fund some of those campaigns. And you need them in order to do that. A lot of these campaigns are costing, well, we're seeing the governor's campaign that's ramping up over $2 million right now. We'll be, and that's just before the primary. A lot of these races end up that way, very expensive, and you need that lobby in order to fund those. And so there's a lot of times making nice with the lobby. Some of the most corrupt of what is in Oregon, in my opinion, are the unions, the public employee unions that really own what is the Democrat Party. And a lot of those folks that belong to those public unions, they don't have a lot of say in where that money goes, but almost all of it is going to the Democrat Party and to keep them in power. And that, to me, becomes corrupt at a number of levels. There's other, environmental and that have a tremendous stranglehold on the Democrat Party, and the Republican Party is not immune to it either. There's some of the business and industry that this is the way they want it, and that's as far as it goes. And like I said, that there's folks down there that I vote different on almost every subject matter. They still believe that they're doing their best for Oregon.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Gonna change gears for a second. Have you done much international travel?
Yeah, a little bit. I want to just we should conclude on the bill. I went down a lot of rabbit trails.
Okay.
But yeah, so once you pass off the Senate floor, then that bill is going to get sent over. It's going to go through the same process in the House committee, full floor. The speaker doesn't have authority to hold up a bill the same, but has a lot of influence. And then if it passes out of the House of Representatives, and it can start in the House of Representatives and come over to the Senate too. It can go the opposite direction. And then it's off to the governor's desk. And then ultimately the governor can either sign, not sign. If she decides not to sign the bill, then it becomes law automatically after a time, or she can veto it. And I've had all of those processes now. So
you've had a bill get vetoed by the governor?
I have, yep.
What was that bill?
That was, what was that bill? Senate bill, doesn't matter now what the number was, but it had to do with preg checking of cattle. And so that people that were proficient at preg checking cattle could be for hire other than veterinarians. Right now, anybody can preg check a cow. You just can't be paid for that service unless you're a licensed veterinarian. We have kind of a deficit of veterinarians in some places in Oregon. And so the Farm Bureau came to me, asked me to run a bill on it. I did. It went to the governor's desk. I had 3 bills on her desk. She was unhappy with me that particular time. And so she called me up and told me that she was going to veto one of the 3 bills and probably the preg check bill.
That's just spiteful.
It was a little spiteful, but yeah.
I guess you're the governor. You get to be spiteful.
That's right. But I ran the bill again this year. It's on her desk right now. I fully expect her to sign it at any time. This will sound odd to a lot of people. There's a part of me that really admires Tina Kotek for the way that she governs, a part of me that really despises. And then, the whole idea of thinking so much differently than what we do and being influenced by people that we don't like to have that influence in our capital. It's a tricky place there. As an individual, I like her. I want to replace Tina Kotek, though, with a Republican governor. No doubt about it. We have opportunity this year. I hope we do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I just had to finish that. Yeah.
It's good. I mean, what a mess. What a mess. But I see some value in the friction, in making the process difficult, putting lots of eyes on it. Because if you've got 4,000 bills a year that could just coast through without that friction, pretty soon you've got 1 billion laws.
Yeah.
And we've already got plenty of laws, more than any one person can understand.
Yeah. And I was a little rough on the lobby there, but I will tell you, lobby is incredibly valuable at being able to analyze those bills, because those things that they are hired to defend or support or to oppose, those trusted individuals in lobby can be so valuable because they dig in, they do the hard work. A lot of them have been there for years. They know the other policies that it's going to impact and can really bring you up to speed in a big hurry on some of those that are complex and help you to defeat them sometimes. And so it's, lobby is a double-edged sword, but we really depend on lobby a lot of times to help us through a lot of these complex things.
Well, and in case anybody's wondering if the lobby has gotten to you yet, I can tell everyone that this morning I went out to your place to shoot a rifle with my buddy Kyle, and you're out there in an old feed truck feeding cows. So if the lobby's gotten to you, I think you're squirreling it away somewhere.
Well, no, I'm not getting my personal pockets aligned. But, campaign contributions are substantial and really appreciated by lobby. And, you can look up anybody's Orstar account. You can go to Orstar and you can type in their name and see their financial transactions. You can see exactly who gave money to what candidate. You can see where the candidate spent his money. And there is a really open, transparent process right now. And I'll, full disclosure, I have about $60,000 in my Orstar account, and that was from contributions. And I, that'll help me get reelected. It helps with some other things too. And so
the job is expensive.
The job is expensive. Yeah.
It's a huge amount of travel.
Yeah. And I'll use some of that campaign dollars. And I'll give an example. Oregon Trappers Association, they invited me over to the Dells, and I'm going to go over there on the 26th. And my night stay over there, I'm going to use some of that $60,000 to use that to get a hotel room. And without that, it's really hard to do the job I do, because we get $35,000 a year as legislators. And most people think we're really raking it in. Oh my gosh, you're a senator. You must be killing it. It's not like Washington, D.C., where those guys are making $200,000 a year. Oregon is one of the lowest paid in the union. I really think it should be a living wage. This is the first time in my life I've been able to afford to do the job. And, it'd be nice if it was a living wage, so that somebody that was young, raising a family, could jump in there and community support them, and we get that person in there. Right now, it's not that way. It's tough. Some of the people that live just miles away from the Capitol, it's not that big a deal for them to do this job. But I live the furthest away. I live 370 miles from our state capitol, and it costs me a hotel room or something every time I go. That we do get travel money if it's something but I get called over to the other side of the state a lot where it's not official. And so, that's the way it is. I have 2 staff members. Isaac Insko is chief of staff right now, and we have enough money out of our office to pay for him. And then Vicki Olson, she does my scheduling, does a lot of constituent work.
Shout out to Vicki.
Vicki's awesome.
Vicki's got snacks.
Vicki's got snacks. Vicki's the most organized person that I know, and very proficient. And we don't know what we'd do without Vicki. She's awesome. And anyway, but above that, so paying for those 2 wages out of my office budget, at the end of the year, I'll have $1,400 to work with. So that campaign money is really important. And so that $1,400 goes if we have a copy machine breakdown in our office, if we need, new monitor screens or, new paper, ink printers, any of that stuff, it comes out of that budget.
Dang.
Yeah. So people, it's different than what you might think. So for travel around a very large district, I use campaign dollars, full disclosure, I do. And I really appreciate those that contribute. And, but it'll be there for reelection as well. And I plan on running again and giving her one more try after my first 4-year term.
Good. Okay. International travel. I'm outside the country 3 or 4 times a year. How old are you? I should know this.
I'm getting up there. I'm 63.
63. All right. How many times have you traveled outside of the country?
One time.
All right. Let's hear about it.
Yeah. So in October, I had opportunity to go to China. And, gosh, I'd never gotten, a visa before, never got a passport. Turns out the birth certificate I've been using my whole life wasn't an official birth certificate, so I couldn't use that. So I had to get one of those. But got all of that stuff in order. And again, thanks to Vicky, because she helped out with a bunch of that stuff. But we went on a trade delegation from Oregon over to China. The Senate president and I and several others. I got appointed to an Oregon-China council. And so when I first got appointed to that, I really didn't know what that meant. We do a lot of trade with China, where we're a Pacific Rim country. We send wheat that way, a number of things that we send, even chips from Oregon, computer chips we send to China. So they're an important trade partner. And at a subnational basis, that's the way that we went. We weren't engaged at all in any of the federal policies that were taking place. It was interesting, though, because President Trump did meet with President Xi while we were over there, not in the country of China, but I think they met in South Korea while we were over there, and it was to talk about trade and some of the embargoes, some of the tariffs that have been put in place, and so trip of a lifetime, and so yeah, that was my first trip out of the United States, was to China.
A lot of Americans are concerned that eventually we'll be at war with China, and they wonder how we'll stack up. Now, you didn't get a great inside look at their military or anything like that, but what was your sense of China seeing it compared to what you'd been led to believe by our media?
Yeah, and so, I grew up with A Christmas Story, and you remember the youngest child there at the dinner table, and they're asking him to eat, and his mom says, "There's people in China that are starving." I grew up in an era where there were 20 million people that starved in the early 60s, about the time that I was born. That was, my early perception of China was it was a very poor country that couldn't feed themselves. Going over there, things have changed. And it was absolutely stunning how fast China is building, the technologies that are there. It just absolutely incredible. It kind of makes the United States look like we're going backwards as far as technology, as far as how fast that we're building out new infrastructure.
Can you give me any examples?
Yeah, and so we rode bullet trains several times. And so the bullet trains over there, about 180 miles an hour, 300 kilometers per hour. And you'd step onto those things, and they were smooth as silk, but they had built these tracks just in the last few years. I went through one tunnel that I'm guessing the tunnel was over 20 miles long. And they, everywhere you looked, they were building new track systems. And so the bullet train transportation system was really impressive. The other examples, buildings. And so we went from city to city to city. I never saw a homeless person the whole time I was there. They have overbuilt housing there, and they have apartment buildings after apartment building after apartment building that are either completed or in process of being completed that don't have anybody in them. They have tremendous stock of housing. The buildings themselves, whether you go to Victory Harbor there in Hong Kong, they light them up, and it makes Las Vegas look so small in comparison with the opulence of how they're lighting these buildings up. What they're doing to light them up, they are building nuclear plant after nuclear plant. They have coal-fired plants all over the place. They have the biggest build-out of solar in the entire world, and they are marching forward with everything. Now, am I envious? I love Wallowa County. And when I told them how large the county I came from was landmass-wise, and it had 7,400 people, there'd be chuckles around the room. And some people would be apologetic saying, "Oh, I'm sorry." There was only one young lady that really sounded appealing to. Most of them wanted bigger, more populated, and more opulent spaces than what they already had.
What's the wildlife scene like?
It was dismal as far as I could tell. So we took a raft trip on a bamboo raft, which was really fun, at Wooey Mountain. In Wooey Mountain, we have a sister state over there, and our sister state is Fujian. We also have a sister state park or national park, in this case, Wooey Mountain and Crater Lake National Park. And so we went to Wooey Mountain, took this bamboo ride, and we went miles down this river for a couple hours, and it was fun. Not a lot of wildlife. And I asked the young man that was rowing, and he said, we saw some monkeys, about 2 months ago, and he showed me the cliffs that they were on, but we didn't see any deer, or deer-like animals. Even in the cities, very few birds. I would listen for birds, and it was something that I missed from here, and didn't hear very many birds. Magpies in downtown, that's kind of what you would see. But me, when I travel, a lot of people read books. I look out the window. From the time I was a little kid, I wanted to see what was going on. All the cornfields I went past, everything that I went past, I never saw a deer-like animal. And it looked dismal to me.
There was a bit of a military show of force while you guys were on that raft trip.
Yeah, and that was really interesting. We were the second delegation to go into China since COVID, and the governor from the state of California had went for just a couple of days and went into Beijing, and then was back out of there. And Gavin Newsom, they talked about him a little bit. And so us being the second delegation to go in there was quite a lot of hype about it. The Senate president, having him there was a big deal, and made a lot of fuss over that. And like I said, trip of a lifetime. We were treated so incredibly well by the people of China. I will say, we talk about, good people everywhere, and certainly we met some incredibly nice people. But yeah, the show of military, while we were on that raft trip, they flew fighter jet after fighter jet after fighter jet after fighter jet right over the top of where we were at. And I have to think that they knew who we were, and we were obviously Americans, second ones, and that was in Fujian, and also off of the coast of Fujian. That's where they have all the missiles lined up, pointed at Taiwan as well. And very complicated relationship that they have with Taiwan. Now, did they absolutely positively want to intimidate us, or just showing force that we have a military? It's a serious military. It impressed me, I'll tell you. And as you pointed out, it could have been a rotation of some of the same aircraft time and again. But regardless, it was an impressive show of force.
Did you get any other sense of their military?
No.
Yeah.
No, and even, we went right to the Capitol. We went right across Tiananmen Square. We drove up right to an elevated spot in this van to where we just stepped out of the van and we're right into the Capitol and sat right across from the Vice President of China. And we met with city mayors. We met with governors of provinces, and in this case, met with the Vice President. And only in one case was anything ever brought up nationally. We kept all of the conversation at a subnational basis. And I want to give a shout out to our Senate President for bringing that back to that level time and again. We wanted to stay out of that conversation, and he did an excellent job of it. It wasn't our place to be critical of either national policy, whether it was China's doing or whether it was ours.
Yeah. How's the food?
The food was not like Chinese food here. I'll start out with the highlight. Going to Sichuan, all of the food I ate in Sichuan province was just outstanding. And they're famous for their hot pots, and the hot pots were just phenomenal. And the hot pots, the way they have those situated in, you can order a number of different types of bases. Their spicy hot pot is what they're most famous for. So I ordered a spicy hot pot. It sits in front of you on this little burner, and then there's a great big lazy Susan that rotates around, and you can take off with tongs anything from beef to chicken to all sorts of seafood, and then put it in your hot pot, get it a little bit hot and spicy, and oh man, so good. Food beyond that, there was a lot of seafood, and some of the things that were what they thought were really, great items to have. There were fractured bone in like some of the chicken and some of the duck and even the pork, but they wanted to show that it was fresh and it wasn't a chicken nugget or something like that. And so that was their way of showing, look, this was really fresh. We just cracked the bone. I was horrified, after the third or fourth piece of meat that I put in my mouth that had a fractured bone in it. I was a little more cautious about the way that I approach that. And, when you're working with chopsticks, I don't know how you get that accomplished all the time. It's appropriate if you get something in your mouth that you can't handle to spit part of it back out. And I watched these dignitaries that were, governors that were sitting right next to me at lunch spit things back out. And, eventually we kind of worked through that. But I did enjoy the food. I tried everything they put in front of me. I gave it a try, and some of it I liked and some of it I didn't. I was not craving Chinese food for a long time after I landed back in the United States, though, I'll tell you.
I just had a wonderful experience in New Zealand and all the food was really incredible, but they do have some salted juvenile seagulls that are called mutton birds that you buy by the bucket down there. And that was a little rank. It was a little rank.
Yeah.
Yeah. I only had a little bit.
Yeah. I can't recall what the rankest food that I had was, but maybe it wasn't that rank.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't that challenging.
Yeah.
That probably, aesthetically, the most challenging thing we had was there were some of those areas that were tea themed. They were really proud of their tea. And one of the places we went on an evening, everything had something that complemented tea. And they had these little live shrimp, and they put them in front of you. And again, on this big Lazy Susan rotisserie thing, and these little live shrimp, they started boiling tea underneath of them to steam them. And pretty, they're jumping like crazy to get away from the tea. And then pretty soon they quit jumping. And then, here they are. And so, that particular night, the Senate president was sick. And so I'm seated next to the governor there, and, try some of these shrimp. And so I look over at one of my buddies and I go, what do you do? Do you eat the whole thing? He goes, yeah, I think so. So I popped it down, and I popped 3 or 4 of them down, to be polite. And they have these really long whiskers on them, and you're eating the whole shrimp. And then I look over at the governor there, and he's pulling the tail off. So yeah, just one of those things.
Well, you don't know what to do.
You don't know. Those whiskers don't go down easy. It's kind of like a whisker of a cat or whatever.
There's some sharp parts on a shrimp too.
Yeah. So,
but you managed it.
I powered through it.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
Okay, we just got done with the legislative short session. What was your biggest victory if you had to claim just one?
Well, if I claimed one, and I can't claim it, it was a lot of work for a long time, and I didn't even see it coming. But having that 1% of video lottery for county fairs, that's a feel-good thing that everybody loved in the end. And it wasn't a bill. It wasn't a bill concept. That was just a matter of negotiation, and a ton of credit goes to Representative Mark Owens, who's also my roommate while I'm down there.
What's up, Mark? Former podcast guest.
Yeah, former podcast guest, former county commissioner, and all the greatest legislators are former county commissioners. I wish there was more of them. Well, not everybody has an eye on what takes place at a local level.
Yeah.
And, you get this big, broader picture of Oregon and one thing or another. But if you deal with that at a county level where the rubber meets the road, you understand what those individual communities, how important some of those things are to you. And so I'll always be a county commissioner. That's something that I'll never walk away from in my heart, because it was a fantastic job. I don't necessarily see being a commissioner or being a senator as an upgrade. I loved being a county commissioner. And so a lot of those principles that I work on as a senator, I look at from the lens of being a county commissioner.
Yeah. Okay. So we got money for fairgrounds.
Yeah. About $250,000 a year, or maybe just a little bit more.
Good.
Yeah.
And that's statewide?
Statewide, every county fair. Yeah. 36 counties. It's like I said, those things that we can do proactively before kids ever get into trouble, if we can keep them involved in 4-H, FFA, all of those things that take place around a county fairgrounds. But beyond that, that's the place, like within Wallowa County, that's our biggest meeting space, the biggest floor space indoors that we have. And so people can have weddings, they can have funerals, all sorts of different banquets and fundraisers. It's busy year round.
Mm-hmm.
When we have fire camps and emergencies, it's the overflow for our hospital. It's so much more than that 1 week of county fair, but there are activities for young people happening there all the time too. And in the evenings when they might be done with school and exhausted and everything else, and you exhaust them a little bit more before they get into trouble. There's so many positive things that happen out of there that, for me, if we can do those things before we send somebody down the wrong path, it's really hard to get them back out on the backside. But there was one judge that said, in all of my years as a judge, I never saw anybody involved in 4-H or FFA that was in trouble in front of me in this court.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, that speaks volumes. That was my first competitive shooting was 4-H archery.
Huh. Yeah.
And look where I am now.
Yeah. That old rigid 50-pound bow that, what was it? About 2 feet long?
It was short. It's 50 inches.
50 inches. Okay.
All
right.
It was stacked up though.
Yeah.
That was not, I was pulling close to 3 times the draw weight of everybody else, but I learned how to shoot it, learned how to win with it.
Yeah.
And, here we are.
Yeah. I was sure surprised that time we went out on that 3D shoot and that squirrel popped up and you pulled back, and I was just about to say, don't wreck your arrow, and you threaded that poor little squirrel.
Yeah. Got to have a bias for action.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you have to look forward to legislatively next? And is there anything that people need to be aware of?
Well, there's a lot of concern about IP 28.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sound like David Brock Smith, but I had a bill for that.
Yeah.
And that bill was to change the initiative petition process to where you had to gather signatures in every congressional district in the state of Oregon. Right now, they're gathering all the signatures for that petition in Portland only.
Of course.
And so Oregon has become, to use a term that Senator Kate Lieber says, a cheap date, in that we have a low threshold for signatures for one. We don't have to gather in a broader area than just one area. So there's money that comes in from out of the state of Oregon to influence this. In this case, IP 28, most of the money that came for it came from Colorado. We saw the deep criminalization of drugs in Measure 110 come from New York and California. We see others that come from influence outside of the state. And what happens is they come here because if they can prove they can pass it in Oregon, then they go on to the next state. But we're the cheapest date. We're the easiest place to do that from.
So
Now,
we're just a testing ground for bad ideas.
we're testing ground for bad ideas. Yeah.
Lovely.
And they can do it relatively cheaply here. And so the bill that I had, like I said, would go and make you gather signatures in every congressional district in the state of Oregon. Now, recently, like with the referendum and the initiative petition that was for the gas tax and trying to repeal that, wouldn't have changed that a bit. We would have still been able to gather those signatures all over. But for these really bad things that we only need Portland for, we got to crack that nut.
Yeah.
And so, I think let's run that again. It was surprising last time when I ran it, people didn't understand what I was doing, and I didn't communicate it well. Amy Patrick from Oregon Hunters Association, great lobbyist. There's an example of a wonderful lobby.
Terrible taste in hockey.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
That's true.
Okay. But Amy is great. Oregon Hunters is very lucky to have her. She carried the weight on that. She messaged it out, did an adequate job. I put it on me because it was my bill. And I had people from my own district that were staunch Republicans that were furious with me for what I was doing. I'm like, trying to explain to them, gosh, guys, did they come to you when they wanted to decriminalize drugs? Did they ask you to sign a petition? Well, no. It's because they don't need you. Well, I still want to be able to put things on the ballot measure that are, beneficial to us. Well, you can still do that. You just have to go to every congressional district in order to do it. Oh, well, I still don't like your bill. And so if we're going to try it again, we got to remessage it. We got to reboot. We got to do a better job. I need to do a better job, and I need to bring in more partners. And Amy, this is not on you because you did an incredible job, I think. But there were people that had signed on to that bill the day that we had the hearing, and the room was empty. And I was sitting there trying to represent it, Amy and I and a few others. And that panel looked at us and just went, you could tell it wasn't going to go anywhere.
Well, I'll take it on the chin for that one too, because I didn't help you with it. I should have. I didn't really understand it either. And next time we'll do a better job and I'll help out.
All right. Well, it'll be good. And I think on the heels of IP28, see, we had an IP13 that was the same as IP28. And then we had an IP3, which is the same thing as IP. And
just so that people know, this is something that is going to essentially make hunting completely illegal.
Yep.
It is going to make animal agriculture impossible.
Yep.
You're not going to be able to farm, ranch, or hunt meat in Oregon anymore.
Yep. Yep. That's the crux of it. And it's so far out there that even those that want to get it on the ballot, they know it won't pass in Oregon. The threat of it passing keeps people up at night.
Well, if the Secretary of State writes a goofy ass description of it, then it might.
Yeah. And it's actually the Attorney General.
Yeah.
The Secretary of State. I may approve it, but it's the Attorney General that writes. And you're right. If it says this is all about saving little fluffy rabbits, and if you vote against it, you hate fluffy rabbits. And so there you go. And people vote for it. Yeah, you're exactly right. The Attorney General position, you can challenge the ballot title, and oftentimes, like Farm Bureau and other groups, they do. They usually lose. It's just one of those things. But yeah, it keeps people up at night, gives a lot of people angst, and it costs a lot of money on the other side to defend this thing. And so you're seeing, all of this stuff all over the internet. Please don't sign IP28. Well, they have to get 117,000 signatures by July, and they're well on their way. They're going to get it done, we think. So we'll be voting on it. But think about this fall. You're going to have on the ballot IP28. You're going to have the governor on there. If that doesn't motivate you to get to the ballot box, what does? That it's really important people show up.
And if rural Oregonians had a better turnout, they would win. I think that they don't. They think, well, we're just outnumbered. It's not even worth my time. But the reality is, if rural Oregon actually showed up, we would win.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the rural Oregon that does show up. And so I usually have a bet with a few different legislators and county commissioners on who is going to get the highest percentage turnout of voters per county. And Wallowa County has won me several steak dinners. And
T-bones?
Well, we could talk about T-bones another time. I don't think I've ever cashed in on a T-bone. I went with rib steaks, but T-bones.
How ironic.
I love a good T-bone. How'd we get on that? But anyway, Wheeler County, Wallowa County, and Grant County, three of the poorest counties in the state of Oregon show up to be the highest percentage voters. And I've told people, desperate people vote. If you're living too fluffy of a life, you know what one of the worst counties is, if not the worst county for turnout?
What's that?
Umatilla County. And I'm not saying that they're just living the good life over there, but when I was elected in the primary over there, there was a 28% turnout.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm glad that 28% showed up and I ended up winning. Really low turnout. And primaries tend to be lower than general election. General election in the president's cycle tend to be higher, the highest. But now we're in a knife cycle. Are people motivated to go to the poll in November for a governor's race, for an IP28, or whatever the measure ends up being? It'll be measure, 120 or something like that. It'll change names, but gosh, I think yes, if all of rural Oregon does show up, if all conservative Republican shows up, we have a chance to flip this thing. We really do. It would be so meaningful on the commissions and boards that are appointed by that governor, the influence that they have in putting directors of different departments, the difference it would make in a governor that really understood business to get down and put a proposed budget together and then going back to the legislature and saying, your budget better reflect mine or else we're going to be here for a long time. And really we could radically change the face of what Oregon is with just having a new governor.
Well, I've made the argument before that everything is ballot box biology. And we constantly within the hunting community see this messaging of like, we've got to stop ballot box biology. Like, all right, so let's break this down. The governor of your state appoints your Fish and Wildlife Commission. So whoever votes for the governor is determining, like when that person wins, they get to determine which people are going to sit on that commission and how they're likely to vote. And they're going to make all of the rules that govern wildlife. So your vote absolutely matters and affects the way wildlife biology is conducted in your state. And if you don't vote, if you decide you're going to be the guy that goes to the bathroom instead, hey, you just have to sit with the consequences. Yeah. It's brutal.
Yeah. Each of us has one vote. It's a really precious thing that we get, and we are a republic. We are represented by those that we elect, and people see us as a democracy, but we are a republic. And so those people that we vote in, that's it. And in my case, I'm not going to take every vote that you like. But at the end of the day, in Senate District 29, this is what you get. And every 4 years, you get to decide whether I go back or not, or you can try to get me out of there with some sort of a repeal also. And so I just think, if you look at it from that perspective, that, this is it. This is our time. This is who represents me. I get one vote. Gosh, cast it. And it's not, this is the easiest place in the world to vote. You get mailed a ballot. It's already has the postage on it. You can put it back in the mail. I would highly recommend taking it down to the clerk and putting it in the box in the clerk's office. Then I have full faith that it took place there.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for the update. Good to have you back in the studio. Thanks for working your butt off and just taking shrapnel from all the West Side vegetarians.
Yeah. I throw a little back sometimes.
Yeah.
And we'll make some progress on some of the failures that I've had. And we need to keep telling our story.
It's your freshman year. You're just getting started.
Well, it's the 83rd legislative session. And so both the long session and the short session were the 83rd.
In the history of the state.
In the history of the state. And, really proud to be there. The last time that a senator was elected from Wallowa County was 1937. He sat in desk number 20. And at the end of this session, I went over to desk 20, and there's a little brass tag on each of those desks. And so I was able to see Charles H. Juker's name on that desk there. And that was the first year that the Capitol was rebuilt. And he took office there and in 1937. And so the Capitol prior, it had burnt down. And so he has the first one on there. And so I don't have a brass tag on any desk yet, but I do not take it lightly that I get to represent such a fantastic piece of land and the people here, the 140,000 people that make up Senate District 29. Huge honor, and I'm glad to be there for now. I look forward to whoever replaces me to go in there charging too and telling the same stories. But individuals like yourself showing up, coming down to Salem, talking to legislators, it's really important. If you get down there, please come by my office, see me. We love having guests there.
Yeah. And there's snacks.
We try to have snacks on hand. Yeah, I don't know how many pounds of jerky we went through, but I think most of the jerky gets taken up by Senator Golden.
Oh man, the guy that eats meat and then votes against mule deer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll never forgive him for that one. But
I get along good with Senator Golden. We were diabolically opposed on some things, but it's a challenge working with me, I'm sure. And we're both up for it. And so I'm glad he's there. This is his last term. This is his last hurrah. He didn't run again. So I will have a new chair there. And I'd love for it to be me. So, if you could swing the whole Senate and get us up to 15 or 16 in the Senate, why, I would love to have that gavel in the Natural Resource Committee.
Yeah, I think you'd do a great job.
Yeah.
I doubt there's anybody out there who cares more. So, alrighty, folks, that's the update on Oregon legislation and Senator Todd Nash. Hope everybody's doing good. Get outside, shoot something and eat it. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time out of their busy lives to write a review for the show and share it with their friends. I'm extremely proud of how intelligent, engaged, and adventurous this audience is. Original music for the Six Ranch podcast is written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Harlander. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.